OWASP Top 10 Vulnerabilities. Now the first thing, what is the OWASP? Now the OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project. It is a non-profit foundation that works to improve the security of a software. Through community-led open source software projects, hundreds of local chapters worldwide, and tens of thousands of members, and leading educational and training conferences, the OWASP Foundation is the source for developers and technologists to secure the web. Now we have the top 10 vulnerabilities depends on the OWASP project. First, the injection, broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, XML external entities, broken access control, security misconfiguration, cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization, using components with known vulnerabilities, and insufficient logging and monitoring. Now let's start one by one. So the injection. Injection occurs when an attacker exploits insecure code to insert or inject their own code into the program. Because the program is unable to determine code inserted in this way from its own code, attackers are able to use injection attacks to access secure areas and confidential information as though they are trusted users. Examples of injection include SQL injections, command injections, CRLF injections, and LDAP injections. Application security testing can reveal injection flows and suggest remediation techniques such as stripping special characters from user input or writing parameterized SQL queries. Don't worry, we will talk about most of these and we will use it practically and how to learn such techniques. We have the broken authentication. Incorrectly implemented authentication and session management calls can be a huge security risk. If attackers notice these vulnerabilities, they may be able to easily assume legitimate users' identities. Multi-factor authentication is one way to mitigate broken authentication. Implement DAST and SCA scans to detect and remove issues with implementation errors before code is deployed. Sensitive data exposure. API which allow developers to connect their application to third-party services like Google Maps are great time savers. However, some API rely on insecure data transmission methods, which attackers can exploit to gain access to usernames, passwords, and other sensitive information. Data encryption, tokenization, proper key management, and disabling response caching can all help reduce the risk of sensitive data exposure. The XML external entities. This risk occurs when attackers are able to upload or include hostile XML content due to the insecure code, integrations, or dependencies, as SCA scan can find risk in third-party components with known vulnerabilities and will warn you about them. Disabling XML external entity processing also reduces the likelihood of an XML entity attack. Broken access control. If authentication and access restriction are not properly implemented, it is easy for attackers to take whatever they want. With broken access control flows, unauthenticated or unauthorized users may have access to sensitive files and systems, or even user privilege settings. Configuration errors and insecure access control practices are hard to detect as automated processes cannot always test for them. So, penetration testing can detect missing authentication, but other methods must be used to determine configuration problems. Weak access controls and issues with credential management are preventable with secure coding practices, as well as preventing measures like locking down administrative accounts and controls and using multi-factor authentication. Security misconfiguration. Just like misconfigured access controls, more general security configuration errors are huge risks that give attackers quick, easy access to sensitive data and site areas. Dynamic testing can help you discover misconfigured security in your application, so that will help a lot. Cross-site scripting. With cross-site scripting, attackers take advantage of APIs and DOM manipulation to retrieve data from or send commands to your application. Cross-site scripting widens the attack surface for threat actors, enabling them to hijack user accounts, access browser histories, spread trojans and worms, control browser remotely, and more. Training developers in the best practices such as data encoding and input validations reduces the likelihood of this risk. By the way, the cross-site scripting is very important and very crucial vulnerability, and a lot of websites, like big companies, are affected by it. Now, sanitize your data by validating that it is the content you expect for that particular field, and by encoding it for the endpoint as an extra layer of protection. Insecure deserialization. Deserialization or retrieving data and objects that have been written to disk or otherwise saved can be used to remotely execute code in your application or as a door to further attacks. The format that an object is serialized into is either structured or binary text through common serialization systems like JSON and XML. This flow occurs when an attacker uses untrusted data to manipulate an application, initiate a denial of service (DOS) attack, or execute unpredictable code to change the behavior of the application. Although deserialization is difficult to exploit, penetration testing or the use of application security tools can reduce the risk further. So additionally, do not accept serialized objects from untrusted resources, and do not use methods that only allow primitive data types. We have using components with known vulnerabilities. No matter how secure your code is, attackers can exploit APIs, dependencies, and other third-party components if they are not themselves secure. So a static analysis, accompanied by software composition analysis, can locate and help neutralize insecure components in your application. Veracode's static code analysis tools can help developers find such insecure components in their code before they publish an application. We have the insufficient logging and monitoring. So failing to log errors or attacks and poor monitoring practices can introduce a human element to security risk. Threat actors count on lack of monitoring and slower remediation times so that they can carry out their attacks before you have time to notice or react. To prevent issues with insufficient logging and monitoring, make sure that all in-login failures, access control failures, and server-side input validation failures are logged with context so that you can identify suspicious activity. Penetration testing is a great way to find areas of your application with insufficient logging too. Establishing effective monitoring practices is also essential. Thanks for watching. Now again, most of these attacks or the top 10 vulnerabilities, we will handle it, okay? We will handle the most important things, and we will have that practically on this course, using the right tools, using the right mindset and all of that, okay? So we will learn how the black hat hackers think as well. Thanks for watching.